Why has it come to this? Mom? What's going on? This is what he did. Upon reflection, I realize I shouldn't have shown my son his father's affair. At such a sensitive age, knowing such things could impact his mental development. I understand that now, but back then, I didn't have the luxury to consider such things. Oh, so he really did it. I suspected something was off, thought it might be the case. I wanted to believe someone with normal sensibility wouldn't cheat, but expecting that from someone who neglects their family was wrong, wasn't it? What should I do now? It's okay, leave it to me. But I need to ask, Mom, do you want to keep living with this jerk of a dad? Of course not. After such betrayal, I don't want to live with him anymore. But there's also our living situation to think about. Got it. Then it's simple. With a smile, my son went back to his room. I didn't know what he was planning, but decided to wait until the day of the supposed affair trip. On that day, my husband left with a smile, but I was shocked by what my son did next. My name is Sharon, and I live with my 3-year-old son and husband, having built what I thought was a happy home. Welcome back. I made beef and potatoes because you said you wanted it. Huh? Oh, right. What about the bath? Is it ready? I just heated it, so it's ready whenever. I also bought a new bath bomb, so use whichever you like. Okay, I'll take a bath first, have a beer ready for when I get out. My husband has always been a man of few words since we were dating. Due to his reticence, it was often hard to know what he was thinking or feeling, but I never pried too much. That's probably why we were able to maintain a certain distance in our relationship. I won't be coming home tomorrow. I'm going out for drinks with my boss. Is that so? I'll probably miss the last train, so I'll catch the first one back. I might end up staying at a business hotel, but just so you know, I won't be home tomorrow. Okay, got it. We may have appeared happy to others after getting married and having a child, but since our child turned 3, my husband started neglecting our family and focusing solely on himself. I understand he's stressed from work, but I thought he could pay a little more attention to his family. Being a stay-at-home mom, it felt wrong to complain about my husband, who was earning the money. I knew that, yet deep down, I wished he would cherish our family more. It's futile to compare with other families, but seeing others going out on weekends or maintaining a good relationship even with kids, I couldn't help feeling a bit envious. Next Sunday is Tim's birthday. What should we do? He wants to go to the amusement park. I've got a golf plan with colleagues next Sunday, so that's a no-go. Why don't you two go? What? It's his birthday, you know? It doesn't matter if I'm there or not. If he wants to go to the amusement park, just take the train. I have to go because of work commitments. I usually don't complain about what my husband does, but this was unforgivable. Why would he prioritize his golf over our child's important day? I understand the importance of work relationships and the impact on his career. And I've tried to be understanding since I've worked before, but I can't accept this. He should make time for his child's birthday at least once a year. I thought he could prioritize family for just one day, especially since he frequently goes out for work-related activities. If this were our wedding anniversary or my birthday, I could understand his reasoning. It's not strange to put off couples' events, but this is about our child. I couldn't stay silent about this. It's basic to make time for your child, no matter what. Wait a minute, isn't it wrong to prioritize golf over our child's birthday? Think about your family a bit. We hardly ever go out as a family anymore, and it's only once a year. It's just a birthday, there will be many more. Kids are attached to their moms, so you two going is fine. I already have plans, so don't nag me, it's annoying. Are you saying work is more important than family? Of course, I understand work is important, and I've never complained about you staying out late or going out on weekends. But shouldn't you make time for your child's special day once a year? Don't you have any sense of responsibility as a father? As a father, my role is to earn money. You're the mother, you take care of the kids and the house. That's normal. Don't push your maternal duties onto me. I'm not trying to push maternal duties onto my husband. If he thinks being a father means he doesn't need to be involved in parenting, that's a big mistake. Considering celebrating our child's birthday as imposing duties is absurd. I began to doubt if he truly cared about our family. My trust in him has gradually faded compared to when we first married. Despite attempts to discuss it, he wouldn't change his golf plans, so my son and I ended up celebrating alone. As Tim wanted, I took him to the amusement park, and for dinner, we went to his favorite barbecue place. Tim seemed to really enjoy it, but he kept wondering why his dad wasn't there until the end, and he seemed a bit sad about it. Now at an age where he's starting to understand things, I wondered why I couldn't make it easier for him, leaving a lingering feeling in my heart, but I decided to move on from the next day. As the months and years flew by, it became normal for my husband to focus solely on himself, hardly spending time with the family. Hey, are you bad-mouthing me to Tim? What? I haven't said anything bad, what's wrong? He told me, why don't you care about Mom? Isn't that disrespectful? It's like he's looking down on his father. No, I haven't talked about you like that. Then teach him properly. He doesn't understand how to talk to his father, it's downright rude. I never bad-mouthed my husband to our son or shared my frustrations about him. I believed marital issues should stay between spouses, not wanting to cause conflict within the family. I wanted my son to focus on his own life. Though I never said such things, I guess my son observed and questioned my husband's behavior towards me, which he honestly confronted. Instead of reconsidering his words and actions, he took it out on me. They say people get set in their ways as they age, but he's not even in his 40s and already seems set in his ways, I felt. It was clear that my husband no longer held any affection for the family. I didn't plan to delve deeper into that. I didn't want to make my son suffer by having a single-parent family or cause major issues. With this resolve, I continued to stay married to him. Now with my son in elementary school, there was something concerning me, leaving no time or energy to deal with my husband. Thank you for making time for this meeting despite your busy schedule. Thank you for having me. So, is there a problem with my child? It's not a problem per se, more like he's doing too well, actually. What? Hearing the teacher's words, I was at a loss. Tim's grades were among the top in his class, so I wondered if it was his attitude in class or some issue, or maybe he was being overbearing with friends because he was academically advanced. That was my concern going into the parent-teacher meeting. But what the teacher said was none of those things. What does it mean by doing too well? Doing too well? What do you mean by that? He's just on a different level, especially in math. He solves problems in less than a minute that would take other kids 10 minutes. I was called by the teacher because my son was too smart. Indeed, his grades were good, but I hadn't realized he was that exceptional. Math? We haven't done any special studying at home. We even gave him problems that middle school students learn, and he got them all right. Maybe he has a special talent in math, like those elementary kids who can solve college-level math problems. Seeing the test papers the teacher showed me, I was truly astonished. But maybe my son really does have a genius talent. The teacher thought so too and reported it to me because if he has such talent, not nurturing it would be squashing his future potential. As a parent, that was the last thing I wanted to happen, so I decided to talk to my husband about it. The teacher told me about this. Just because he's a bit smart, it doesn't mean he won't level out by middle school. Don't get carried away and do something strange. He's fine as he is. Don't say that. He might be gifted, and he needs more than a normal environment. Who's going to pay for that? You don't even work, so don't start with this high and mighty talk. We don't have the money for that, so don't make noise. At his words, I couldn't respond. Indeed, the money earner was my husband, and if he said no, I couldn't change our situation. But not doing anything would be a disservice to our son's talent, which I wanted to avoid. I researched private schools and decided to transfer my son to a school specializing in gifted education. The school was one of the few in the county that focused on gifted education, and I felt that my son would be able to develop his talents in a relaxed manner there. You're really transferring him? I won't pay any school fees, you know. That's fine, I understand. I've started working part-time, and my parents said they would help with the tuition. If you have a plan to manage it, fine, but don't expect any help from me. Remember this, I absolutely refuse to be asked to pay for the tuition later on. My husband said what he wanted and left, but it was clear he hardly cared about our child. He thinks as long as he provides the bare minimum for living expenses, spending the rest on his leisure is okay. He regularly went to drinking parties and golf, but we never had a family trip, not even once. Our son hardly had any family outings during the summer vacations, and realizing how selfish this was, I sighed again. However, I had little expectation from my husband to begin with, so I decided to live for my son, not just the family. Soon after, the transfer process was complete, and my son seemed happier and more relaxed at school than before. How's school been lately? It's more fun than the math I was doing before, and every day is interesting. That's great to hear. I'm glad. I know you've been working hard for me. Really, thank you. I wondered if I was making my son worry too much, but if he was happy, I was willing to do anything. Although my parents were helping with the tuition, it wasn't enough. I made up the difference with my part-time job. My husband sometimes said I should contribute money to the household since I was working, but I didn't let it bother me. Then, in what seemed like no time, Tim graduated from middle school and went on to high school. He wanted to attend the Stanford University and was enthusiastic about competing in the math competition in high school. I felt proud and thought I needed to support him even more dedicatedly. Next Friday, I'm going on a business trip and will be back on Monday. Okay, good luck. I responded nonchalantly, but deep down, I was a bit shocked. Our relationship had been cold for years, but recently I had hoped we could live happily together again after our son grew up. The day he was leaving for his trip was our wedding anniversary. Well, he probably forgot, or even if he remembered, he likely had no intention of celebrating it. But even though our relationship had cooled, we had been married for 15 years. That meant something, didn't it? That's how I was feeling at that time. What's this? While my husband was preparing his suitcase in his room, his forgotten smartphone on the living room table rang. Normally, I wouldn't care, but it was right in front of me, so I saw the notification. It was more like it caught my eye rather than I intentionally looked. No way! Who is this? Seeing the notification on my husband's phone screen, my mind went blank, and I was at a loss for words. The notification was from a woman. Just seeing her icon, name, and the message looking forward to our trip starting Friday, with here stamp, made everything clear. Friday was the day he said he was leaving for his business trip. My mind went blank, but what did this message mean? By then, an affair seemed certain, but I couldn't accept that reality. Maybe I just didn't want to accept the truth. We had been married for 15 years, and although our relationship wasn't great, our son hadn't even reached adulthood yet, and I had hoped for a better future. But that frail hope was crushed. Why has it come to this? Mom? What's wrong? This is what he did. Upon reflection, I realize I shouldn't have shown my son his father's affair. At such a sensitive age, knowing such things could impact his mental development. But at that time, I couldn't afford to think about these things. Oh, so he really did it. I suspected something was off, thought it might be the case. I wanted to believe someone with normal sensibility wouldn't cheat, but expecting that from someone who neglects their family was wrong, wasn't it? What should I do now? It's okay, leave it to me. But I need to ask, Mom, do you want to keep living with this jerk of a dad? Of course not. After such betrayal, I don't want to live with him anymore. But there's also our living situation to think about. Got it. Then it's simple. My son said this with a smile and went back to his room. I didn't know what he was planning, but he reassured me to leave it to him, so I decided to trust him. Meanwhile, I was researching the benefits available to single-parent families in case of divorce. Soon, the day of my husband's supposed business trip arrived. I felt uneasy all morning, but my husband left home cheerfully, oblivious to my feelings. He must be looking forward to his affair trip, I thought, as I saw him off and then slumped into the living room chair with a sigh. Hello? Is this Apollo Corporation? I'd like to ask about a Mr. Smith, who is in sales. To my surprise, my son started calling my husband's company. I didn't know what he was planning, but he mentioned my husband's name. Then my son stepped into the hallway to continue his conversation, and I couldn't hear what was being said. He returned after less than a minute. Then, it seems he told his company he's using his leave for the trip. Now we have all the evidence we need. Well, let's wait for him to come back. He might return earlier than the trip is supposed to end. My son said, grinning, and turned on the TV and lay down on the couch. Smirking, my son turned on the TV and lay down on the couch. I didn't understand what was happening just from confirming that my husband wasn't on a business trip. But maybe my son had a plan that I couldn't see. I decided to stay silent for a while, and then my phone rang. Hey! You contacted my company, didn't you? What are you talking about? Cut the act. I just got a call from the company. The call from the company was probably due to my son's earlier call, but why was he so angry? I was a bit perplexed, but had something to say. Are you surprised because the company called you during your affair trip? Or did it upset your mistress? No, what? Did you really think I knew nothing? I've been aware you've been deceiving me. You said you were on a business trip, but you're having an affair, right? Is your little trip enjoyable? I usually wasn't this assertive with my husband, and I had never been before. He must have been surprised that his affair, which had remained hidden until now, was uncovered. After a moment of silence, I was determined not to let this go. Do you think staying silent will let you escape? Won't you explain properly? Well, that's... Just as my husband tried to make excuses, my son took my phone and pressed the speaker button. I didn't know what he was planning, but he signaled to me with his eyes. I let the situation flow and handed the phone to my son. Then he said, "Hello? Do you realize what you've done?" What? You're the one who contacted the company, huh? They told me a man called. I just checked if you were really on a business trip. But taking time off during the busy season, how irresponsible. You don't think about the inconvenience to your company or even our wedding anniversary, and then you have the nerve to snap at me? I almost admire that. My son, usually very kind, spoke in a provocative tone this time, clearly agitating my husband. My husband, who was quite proud, must have been very angry to be taunted like this by his son whom he deemed inferior. However, my son's arguments were too valid, leaving my husband speechless and visibly frustrated. Mom's planning to divorce you, and you'll be paying alimony and child support. That's your duty as a husband and what you should do. What are you talking about? I won't accept that. It doesn't matter if you accept it or not, we'll just go to court. Don't underestimate people. Court? The main points I'm communicating are the impending divorce, I will be staying with Mom, and regarding the financial aspects like alimony and child support, we will be getting a lawyer to ensure proper payment. After stating this, my son ended the call. Despite multiple calls afterward, my son advised me not to answer, so I ignored them. But what shocked me most was what my son said. I hadn't decided on divorcing yet. Indeed, I expressed a desire to divorce to my son, but realistically, we couldn't afford to live post-divorce. My parents weren't wealthy, and living with them wasn't an option given my son's school location. Considering the financial strain of my son's education, living independently post-divorce seemed impossible. Wait, you said we're getting a divorce, is that true? Well, you want a divorce, right? I do, but it's not something that can be done so easily. It's okay, it's not as difficult as you think. What? I've already consulted with a lawyer, and in cases like this, we have a 99% chance of winning. Don't worry, we won't lose. We'll get the alimony and child support in a lump sum, which will help cover our living expenses. With the single-parent benefits and support we can get, it's not an unrealistic plan. I was impressed by my high school son's forward thinking and actions. Though it was my job to research and decide, my son proved to be very reliable. Following his advice, I consulted with a lawyer again and started the process for alimony and child support claims. With the evidence my son gathered from my husband's phone, including messenger chats, it seemed unlikely we would lose in court. After informing my husband through the lawyer immediately, he returned home earlier than planned. Hey, you two, don't get carried away. Enough with the nonsense. Who's the one joking here? You've been cheating all along, right? And with a married woman, seriously, what are you doing? How do you know all that? It's obvious, isn't it? You can identify someone from their SNS account name and profile picture, and then it's easy to figure out their background, marital status, where they live, and their hobbies. My husband and son were arguing right after he got back, but my son had previously asked me to trust him no matter what. Though I was anxious, I decided to stand by my son and silently watched their quarrel. So, you've forgotten the kindness of being raised by me? Doesn't it hurt your heart to betray me like this? Let me say this, then. Don't you feel any pain for betraying your own family for 15 years? You put your actions aside and blame others, yet as an adult, you can't understand that? My son's words turned my husband red with rage. He was faced with undeniable truth, and I felt pity for him, but we were ready to leave the house with our packed belongings. Wait, are you really going to leave? The divorce papers are in your room. If you don't file them, we'll have the lawyer we consulted about the alimony handle it. It's a mess right now. I apologize, please forgive me. He finally admitted his wrongs and apologized at the last minute, but it was too late. Or maybe he wasn't truly acknowledging his faults, just desperately trying to improve his situation. No matter how much he apologized, my feelings wouldn't change. Is it really that bad? The company is furious, saying I'm causing trouble during a critical time. Plus, I've been contacted by her husband. I'm really in a mess here. I felt indifferent inside, wondering why I should care about his troubles. Why should I, the primary victim, have to do anything? But I realized arguing further was pointless and decided to leave the house. My husband followed us for a while, but we ignored him and continued to our new apartment. We'll be living in an apartment now, but I'll work hard. What are you talking about? That's not an issue. I'm glad to be rid of such a worthless person. Thanks to my son's words, I felt empowered to move forward with confidence. With the lawyer's help, we received a lump sum for alimony and child support within 2 months. We also secured a no-contact agreement with my ex-husband, truly starting a new chapter in our lives. Mom, I've been accepted to participate in the math competition. Congratulations! You've worked so hard. It's all thanks to your support. And now that plague is gone too. 6 months later, my son's talent in mathematics continued to flourish. The mental strain of living with my ex-husband must have affected him too. I felt sorry, but ultimately it turned out for the best. I heard from the lawyer that my ex-husband resigned from his job during a busy period due to the affair. And given the company's strict stance on infidelity, his standing was ruined. He faced alimony claims from the affair partner's husband and led a miserable life, but that was none of my concern. I became a full-time employee at my part-time job, securing a modest but stable income. Prioritizing cooperation with my son and valuing our family bond has been paramount. My ex-husband never truly cared about family, which led to his lonely end. I will continue to live my life taking care of my own family, including my son and parents. I believe that is what it takes to live a happy life.